Hey guys, welcome back to my channel Easy Learning. So today we are going to see variable concept in Python programming. Let's get into the session directly. So I'll begin with a simple explanation of variable. So what is variable? A variable is a reserved memory location to store any values. So what is values? The different data types. If you want to know the different data types in Python programming, I have shared the link in the description box. You can make use of it. What are all the different data types available in Python programming? In other words, variables are containers for storing any type of values. It can be float, it can be integer, it can be string. So you can store any type of values into a variable. So unlike other programming languages, Python has no command for defining a variable. So what is that? A variable is created the moment you first assign a value to it. For example, I will consider x is equal to 5. So 5 is an integer value. Now I can say x is also an integer data type because the value 5 is assigned to the variable x. And one more thing, variables need not to be defined with any particular data type, and even you can change the type after they have been set. For that also, again I am going to consider the variable x is equal to 4.5. Now 4.5 is a floating point value. Now I can say x is a floating point variable. So this is how you can change the type of the variable with the value that you are going to assign to the variable. Apart from this, you have one predefined function, that is type. This particular function will take object as a parameter. Object is nothing but your variable, and it will return the particular type of the variable. It will be integer, float, or any other types also. So this is one predefined function available in Python to display the type of the particular variable. So this particular feature makes Python as a dynamically typed language. If you want to know what is dynamically typed language, again link has been shared. You can watch and get to know. Actually, I thought of explaining this concept with one scenario. So what is that scenario? I just want to store some nuts and berries into the bottle. So for that, I am going to consider two different shelves where glass bottles are arranged with labels in one shelf and without labels in other shelf. So what I am going to store it into the bottle are, I am going to consider three different nuts and berries, that is almonds, cashews and berries. So these are the three different nuts and berries. I am going to store it into the bottle. Now I am going to relate this scenario with programming language. This cashews, almonds and berries represent the different data types. That means the different values like integer, float and string. So I am going to store these three different nuts into the first shelf bottles as well as the second shelf bottles. So if I am considering the first scenario, that is, I am going to store all these three different nuts into the labeled bottles. Okay. So what I have labeled is, first bottle is for cashews, second bottle is for almonds and the third bottle is for berries. I am going to store the nuts into the respective bottles where I have labeled already. So this is similar to defining a variable in other programming languages. So while you are defining the variable in other programming languages, you have to specify the type before assigning a value to the variable. The same way, if you are considering the first scenario, before storing the nuts into the respective bottle, you have to label them. Then you can store it into the bottles according to the label. And you cannot change the nuts with some other bottles because it is already labeled. But if you are considering the second scenario, I am going to store nuts into the bottles that are not labeled already. So I can store any nuts into any bottle. It is not mandatory to store this particular nuts into a particular bottle. So this is similar to defining a variable in Python programming. So you no need to define the variable with any particular type or any specific type, and even you can change the type after storing the value also. So I can relate this concept with the scenario again. After had your berries, you can buy another set of same nuts and berries, and you can store it into a different bottle. That means you can store it in different order because the bottles are not labeled. I hope this scenario is very helpful for you to understand this particular concept in a better way. So let's move on to some rules for naming a variable. So we have certain rules while you are naming the variable. Let's see one by one what are the rules we have to follow while we are naming the variable. The first rule is a variable name must start with a letter or underscore character. So I will give you the example one by one. You just have a look, then you will get to know. And the next rule is a variable name cannot start with any number. Number means digits. And the third rule is a variable name can only contain alphanumeric characters and underscores. It should not contain any other terms apart from these three, that is alphabets, numeric and underscore. And the next rule is it should not contain any special characters. And the next rule, the variables in Python programming are case sensitive. Here you can see these three variables are actually different. Even though it is same, in Python these three variables are different. And the next one is you should not use any keywords or reserved word as a variable name. So these are all the rules we have to follow while we are naming the variable. So thank you for watching this video. I hope this is useful for you all. We'll see you in the next video. Until then, keep learning. Bye bye.